What's the creepiest / scariest thing that you've seen but no one believes you? I was out with my friends and came home pretty late. I didn't want my parents asking questions, so I snuck in through the garage. The door was locked, but I had a key. I turned the key to unlock it, but then I heard an abrupt snap and the door locked again. I repeated this 3 times. Each time I unlocked the door re-locked. Exasperated, I cried out, "Mom, it's me." Then I heard the door unlock. I opened the door and no one was there. I saw something crouched in the road driving around one night. Its eyes glowed when my headlights hit it, so I assumed an animal of some sort, but when I got within about 15 feet of it, it stood up and looked like a girl standing there. I slammed on my brakes immediately, but suddenly the road was just empty. My friend in the car hadn't seen anything, but asked me a few minutes later if it looked like a girl. He'd apparently seen something similar with his sister a few weeks before in the exact same spot. I was 15 years old. Was in LA for a convention and Disneyland trip. There was a large group of us. My best friend and I were sitting next to each other on the bus. As we're driving from the airport, both my friend and I watch 2 people exit this house on the corner. One starts to run, and the other pulls a pistol out and shoots him down. Then shoots him again. We both looked at each other thinking, holy shit. We told some adults on the trip, and they told us we hadn't seen that and it never happened. Update: it was February 16th, 2005. Our flight left at 3 something in the morning, the flight not being long from Northern California. When we got on the bus, big like a greyhound, from the airport, everyone fell asleep. It was still dark out. My best friend and I weren't tired. The gunshots weren't loud. I grew up around guns. The 2 adults we told were not our parents, but chaperones. They acted like we were crazy, but we know what we saw. To this day I feel like they were dumb adults. No iPhones. We took all our pictures for the trip on disposable cameras and Nikons. We were headed to the LA Religious Education Congress Youth Day. We weren't religious, but went for the Disneyland trip. We got to miss school and go to Disneyland. It seemed worth sitting through a day of stuff we had no attachment to. I have since researched murders throughout the area and haven't found a thing. If you have made it this far into the video, you are legally obliged to subscribe. One time a door to my house's office slammed open when I woke up at 6 AM. Naturally it slowly opens on its own due to the weight distribution. It takes about 8 seconds to fully open, but it slammed open like it was forced. It was 6 AM in the middle of winter, so no windows were open to create a draft, and everyone was asleep. I was too tired for some ghostly bullshit, so I peed and went back to sleep. Edit: I wasn't in bed as it happened. I got up to walk to the bathroom, but the office door is visible from my bedroom entrance. About a year ago I was up watching movies late at night when I got hungry and went downstairs for a snack. My room is across from my daughter's room and her door was open. As I was coming back upstairs I start turning left towards my room when I hear, clear as ever, "Daddy, can you close the door?" I turn around, don't say much, and just close it. Once I'm back in my room, I lie down to watch TV when it hits me. My daughter isn't there. She's spending the night at my parents'. I get up and go to her room and sure enough, it's empty. I woke up my wife and she thinks I'm crazy. Says I was probably tired and maybe it was the TV. I remember the voice so clear and coming in the direction of her room. It's very possible that it was just my head playing games, but it definitely made me question a few things. I worked at a small gas station in my small town when I was in my late teens. I was stocking sodas around back in the storage room. A man startled me, then apologized. He asked me for directions to Washington, D.C. I gave him the best directions I could. I sent him toward Philadelphia. He thanked me and went to his car. There was a kid about my age sitting in the passenger seat. He gave me the most evil stare I've ever seen. They pulled off, and I forgot about it and got back to work. I remember watching the news sometime later when they arrested the DC snipers. It was them for sure. Sent chills through my spine. I'm glad they spared me. I've only told a few people because I'm afraid people won't believe me. It still makes me feel a bit uncomfortable when I think about it. When I was about 12 or 13 I woke up in the middle of the night and smelled my father's cologne. thought it was a little odd, since he lived about an hour away, but was too tired to care. Went back to sleep, woke up the next morning, and for some reason my mother didn't wake me up for school. My father had passed away the night before. Never told anyone for years about that night, but around the age of 23 I told my mom. She was glad to know that she wasn't crazy. That same night she got startled awake, and the dog was staring at the door wagging his tail, almost like he was saying goodbye before fully leaving. When I was 9 my father passed away and said goodbye to me in his own manner as well. Woke up randomly in the middle of the night to see him sitting at the end of my bed. He had died just 4 days prior. He didn't say a thing, just reached out and put his hand on my leg in a comforting manner. I screamed and left the room crying because it scared me quite badly, but I remember it as clear as if it had happened yesterday. Over the years I've come to terms with the fact that he was saying goodbye and feel much more at peace with his sudden death. I was dozing on the couch at my parents' place last year, not comfortably because I was cold. Then I felt a wave of heat pass over me, which was pleasant enough until I felt these firm, pointed fingertips on my head, like something was standing behind me with its hands on my scalp. I was frightened, but then grabbed them and threw them off me. A few minutes later my mum came in and said she heard a door open and had got the feeling she should check on me. Probably a dream, but it was super creepy. I was 6 and remember playing in my room and my grandpa walks in and talks to me for a few minutes. After a bit he gets up and tells me to be a good girl for mom, kisses me on the forehead, and walks out. Mom comes in about 5 minutes later hysterical and told me my grandpa had died overnight and we had to leave to go be with the family 2 states over where he lived. My wife and I were driving up through northern Arizona on Highway 89 between Flagstaff and Page. It was about 1 AM, as we were on third shift at the time and often drove at night to avoid traffic. I saw a few sets of eyes glowing in my headlights a little ways up the road, so I let off the gas, slowing down to avoid hitting an animal in the road. When we drove by we saw several dogs, coyotes, on the side of the road, and I hit the gas and drove by. After we passed my wife said one of them was running next to the car and I looked over and saw it as well. Probably 20 feet off the shoulder of the road. I floored it and looked over and it stood up on its hind legs. That's the only way I can describe it, and kept pace with us for a couple seconds before turning away from the road and disappearing. This whole event probably lasted no more than 10 seconds, but it was seriously the most terrifying 10 seconds of my life. This was probably 20 years ago and we still rarely talk about it. When I was little, between 6 and 11, I'd experience what I later found out to be Alice in Wonderland syndrome. My blanket would feel like it was 6 inches thick. My room would grow longer as I looked down across my bed. My stuffed animal would get smaller. I could hear echoes of pretty much any little sound, and sometimes I felt like I was shrinking. I'm not sure why it stopped, but I'm definitely happy it did. A few years back, my dad and I headed deep into the Utah countryside to watch the Perseid meteor showers. We were leaning against our car when we heard the loudest screeching sound coming from the darkness. We didn't stay to find out what it was. We jetted into the car and we bolted out of there. I once lost 30 minutes just getting up from the couch and pouring myself some Pepsi, a trip that should have taken 2 minutes tops. I was once walking to my school bus stop near my then girlfriend's house. Out of the corner of my eye I thought I saw a big dog. It startled me and I jumped back to find nothing there. Then my phone rang. Girlfriend called me asking where I was. I had missed the bus. Lost about 20 minutes just getting spooked by a dog that wasn't there. I was once waiting for the metro in Shanghai and saw a woman in tears frantically run past. She stopped dead in her tracks and seemed to be searching for a train on either platform, but there was none coming. She was yelling something, but I didn't speak the language, so I don't know what. She then ran into the nearby bathroom. About 30 seconds later 2 men in ordinary clothes came barreling down the escalator. They were shouting, but again, I don't know what. They began walking up and down the track yelling, and then went into the bathroom the woman was seemingly hiding in. A few seconds later they emerged, dragging the woman away. She was screaming, crying, and fighting like hell to get away from them. The men just kept screaming back at her, shaking her violently, and striking the back of her head while they forcibly carried her up the stairs. Everyone on the platform just gawked, mouths agape, but no one did a thing. And then, mere seconds later, the entire scene was over, and people were back to staring at their phones, as if whatever the hell that was didn't just happen.